let's start because I'm so excited, and I have a few thank yous to get started with. First of all, welcome everyone to MBY Radio's Rock and Roll Book Club. This is just such an honor for me. I'm Polly Simpkins. I get to host this great group of people who come together bi-monthly to just talk about music. And let me just start by saying there is no pressure to have read the book. There's no pressure to talk. Keep your cameras on or off. This is super casual, very drop in, and we just want to be here with you, and we're just glad you're here. So thank you so much for coming. Again, I'm Polly Simpkins, and I want to thank Joe Stickles, who is our tech support up here. If you have any streaming issues or anything that you need technically, you can chat with him in the chat. And thank you, Joe, for being here since the beginning and for everything you do for MBY Radio, of course. I want to thank Todd Carlin, who is not here, but he is our webmaster at MBY Radio, and he deals with the website and does all my updates and changes that I make, and he's super patient with me. Thanks to Jay Harper, who is our traffic director and our wonderful graphic designer, and he makes it all look really nice, and I'm grateful to him for that. I want to thank PJ Finn, who's supported this project from the beginning, and to all my MBY colleagues. If you're just tuning in, welcome. I'm Polly, and so happy to be here. And huge thanks to Brewster Bookstore, who's the sponsor for MBY Radio's Rock and Roll Book Club, and we're so grateful to them. We love our independent bookstores, and Brewster is a huge support of us, so thank you to them. And I wanted to talk about the book. First, I want to thank Tony DeSabato because he recommended this book that will be our next book called Living in the Present with John Prine. And Tony wrote to me about the book, and I ended up getting in touch with the author, Tom Piazza, and I'm going to be speaking with him and interviewing him soon. And Tony said, the deep friendship and love shines from Tom's words, and Tom being the author. And the author's note, just one sentence is, John said he never wanted to write a memoir, and I was more than surprised when he asked me to collaborate with him on writing one. So this is about a really cool road trip that Tom Piazza took with John Prine and wrote about it. And that will be May 20th. Our next Rock and Roll Book Club will be Living in the Present with John Prine. And thank you, Tony, for recommending it. Really appreciate that. I have 3 books I wanted to mention. Usually I'll just kind of go through a couple. This is called Run the Song, Writing About Running, About Listening. And this is a book written by a guy named Ben Rateliff, and he wrote this during COVID. It's as you can see, a National Book Award long lister. And it's about his playlist during COVID and everything that was going on in the world. It's a really cool book. Again, it's called Run the Song. Also, this book I'm really excited about by a British journalist, Alexander Larman, and his name is, the name of the book is Lazarus, the Second Coming of David Bowie. Oh. And this book is all about David Bowie's second half of his career. And we know so much about the beginning, but he did reinvent himself several times. This book is about David Bowie and a deep dive into Black Star, his final record, which is really something I'm excited about. Okay. And then lastly, this book, which is not new, but given Michael Stipe's really deep connection with Kurt Cobain, this is Kurt Cobain's journals that were released quite a few years ago. And even if you're not a Nirvana fan, they're pretty cool. And I thought I would just mention it because of Michael Stipe and his connection. And this is just literally a copy of Kurt Cobain's journals released by Courtney Love and his daughter. So those are the 3 books that I've been thinking about and wanted to share. And so grateful that you are here to just take part in tonight's book, which is, the name of this band is REM. And for those who were here at our last book club meeting, we took a vote on Peter Ames Carlin and which book of his we would read. One of the choices was Tonight in Jungle Land, The Making of Born to Run. And by just one or two votes, this one won. So you're probably wondering why we're not reading that one. And it's because his publisher asked that we wait till the fall because it's going to be coming out in paperback. So they suggested that we read the REM book. So that's why. And if you are new to Rock and Roll Book Club, welcome. I'm Polly Simpkins. Typically the format is I have a little video that we play at the very beginning. We discuss. Tonight we have a special guest coming. And I wanted to mention Bruce, Peter, Ames, Carlin, because the video is 20 minutes long, which is a little long for us, but he was so interesting and I could not decide what to cut. So I wanted to let you know just about Peter because I didn't have time in the video to talk about him, but he is a renowned American music biographer, and he's known for these really intense, narrative-driven, incredible biographies of some of the most iconic rock icons, including Bruce Springsteen. As I said, these are both his books, Bruce's biography and Tonight in Jungle Land. Also, Paul Simon, Brian Wilson, who's written about Warner Brothers, Paul McCartney, and he talks about Brian Wilson in this little video that we have. So I just wanted to say a shout out to him. He's formerly a senior writer at People. He's a TV critic for the Oregonian. He lives in Seattle. And he's quite amazing and super, super interesting. So I hope you enjoy that. And then after that, we'll have a little chat. And then Ian Wheeler will be joining us. He is the co-founder of Partisan Records and also Talk House, which is a really cool first-person media company. And he has a documentary coming out about REM and about Michael Shannon, you know, the actor, and his friend, musician, Jason Narduzzi, and they have a cover band and they go around and they cover the Smiths and Neil Young in albums in their entirety. And they've been doing this for many years, but more recently in 2023, they started doing it with REM. And it was so successful that they just got off another tour that ended on March 16th. And they did REM's fourth studio album, Life's Rich Pageant, and they play it in its entirety. So he has a documentary coming out about that whole thing with Michael Shannon. So Ian's going to join us and just let us know about his film. So again, if you're just tuning in, I'm Polly Simpkins. Welcome to MBY Radio's Rock and Roll Book Club. We're going to play now this video. Again, it's 20 minutes long. And one more time, this is super low-key book club. You don't have to say anything. You can keep your cameras on or off. It doesn't matter. Just enjoy yourself. And thank you for being here with us. We love you. We appreciate you. And it wouldn't be the same without you. So without further ado, Joe, you can roll the video. Again, it's about 20 minutes long. Cook dinner, have fun, whatever you want, and enjoy.
I'm gonna roast them.
Yeah. Good.
REM was founded in 1980 by Michael Stipe, Peter Buck, Mike Mills, and Bill Berry, while students at University of Georgia, Athens. Heavily involved in the Athens art scene, REM was popular with UGA student population. Their debut concert was held on April 5, 1980, at St. Mary's Episcopal Church, and the band would go on to dominate the Athens music scene with their high-energy shows, alternative indie sound, and unique cerebral lyrics. REM then began touring outside of Athens, releasing their first single, Radio Free Europe, in 1981. Shortly after dropping their Chronic Town EP in '82, REM released their debut studio album, Murmur, in 1983, and from there would go on to release 15 studio albums in total, including critically acclaimed Reckoning, Document, Out of Time, and Automatic for the People, including many hit singles such as Losing My Religion, Everybody Hurts, Shiny Happy People, and Man on the Moon, among others. Through a combination of hard work, good luck, and brilliant musicianship, by the early 1990s, REM was one of the biggest bands in the world. Together, they possessed great integrity and confidence in their identity as a band, and were unyielding in their demand of full creative control of their sound. Drummer Bill Berry suffered a ruptured brain aneurysm on stage March 1st, 1995, during a concert in Lausanne, Switzerland. He made a full recovery and rejoined the band, but retired in 1997 to become a farmer. REM continued to make music together, but announced their split on September 21st, 2011. At that time, they had sold more than 90 million albums worldwide and would be remembered as one of the most iconic acts in alt-rock history. REM was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007 during their first year of eligibility, and the four band members remain close friends to this day. Peter Ames Carlin released his cultural biography, The Name of This Band is REM, in 2024, a deep dive into the trajectory of a band that will always be remembered for their originality, insight, and electrifying performances. I had a chance to sit down with Peter and talk about his book, the band, and how they managed to alter music history with their vision and signature sound.
And I wanted to start with Athens. And just for those people who haven't read the book, I usually set up with a little film at the beginning, like I said. But if you could just kind of go into a little bit of how they came together and then the effect and the influence that Athens had on their music and what was going on at the time.
Sure. Well, Athens is, of course, a little university town in the northeast corner, I think, of Georgia, like
Mhm.
an hour and a half outside of Atlanta. And it's a lovely little town. It's built around the University of Georgia. And, by and large, UGA is just another big southern university with a big football team. It's like the town when they have home football games, it's like, it's like a riot every weekend, and certain types of people, your arty people by and large, will get out of town for the whole weekend. There's lots of frats and sororities and that type of stuff, but there's also this incredible art school, the Lamar Dodd School of Art, which somehow grew and thrived and became a real, national leader in having really interesting, artists on practicing artists on faculty. And so they had this whole crowd of kind of bohemian artists sort of living in their own little world there on the edge of the UGA campus. And it became a clarion for a lot of these kind of Southern weirdo kids who were super interesting and super, avant-garde in their own way. And when that scene really began to pick up in the 70s, a lot of the faculty were just super into music because they were young and they were part of that kind of rock and roll generation. And there was a lot of the people who teach visual art also had an abiding interest and even a practice in music. And so, especially like as punk rock and art rock from New York in the 70s began to kind of spread out around the country, Athens became a hotbed of that type of music. And so the faculty, there was a lot of talk, a lot of those bands that came out of Athens that are these that we still talk about now, 45 years later, like the B-52s and Pylon, and of course REM, and there's, a dozen others. Either were made entirely or in part from people who were students at the Lamar Dodd School of Art.
I know Peter and Michael met at the record store, and they were all students at UGA. Is that right?
Well, Peter wasn't. He had been at Emory and then dropped out
Oh, right,
after a
right,
year
right.
and a half or so. And then he moved to Athens to work at the record store at Luck Street,
Right.
because he was a record store guy, much to his
Totally.
parents' dismay. But starting in Atlanta. And so then he moved to Athens to be the manager of the store. And that's where he began to, he was the guy that was constantly playing guitar behind the counter. And when Michael moved to Athens in, I think, early 1979, and was looking around town and trying to make his peace with what he thought would just be a hippie cow town, he ran into Peter, and also, of course, was studying art at the UGA school. And so then he connected with Peter, and they became pals and had similar interests in music, and it wasn't, just a few months before they started playing together.
One of my favorite quotes of the book is to go to an REM show or any show by one of the emerging art bands from Athens or any of the other alternative music scenes developing around the country was a statement of purpose, or at least of membership. You are part of something new, something outside the ordinary, something that has nothing to do with conservative mainstream society, politics, or especially the boomer defined rock and roll that dominated the radio dial. And I think these are like bookend chapters for me, Murmuring and then The Murmurers. So
Yeah.
chapter 46, you say, during the first half of the 1980s, the members of REM found their people, looked into their eyes, and let them know they'd been seen and understood. And if you knew where to listen and what you were listening for, you could be part of that. That's the sound of Murmur. And if that was your REM album back when it was the only REM album, nothing could be more powerful. So I love that because I love Murmur and I am a murmurer. And I would love to hear, just for those who maybe aren't as familiar with what Murmur represents, pre and post, we're talking about the very beginning of things and so much hinging on Murmur and then moving into RCA, then IRS and Jay Boberg and all of that. So if you could just speak to Murmur a little bit and what you're referencing when you talk about this, the spirit of what REM was capturing.
Sure. Well, Murmur was their first full-length album. It came out in 1983, and following on the EP that came out the year before, Chronic Town. And early in their career, as it was, they're still learning how to do their job. And but what they're doing in the spirit of Athens is kind of turning their limitations into opportunities, which is writing because Peter wasn't that great a guitar player at first, and had a very, he turned that into a very distinctive way of playing, where he was not interested at all in doing the kind of, super fast, super sleek lead guitar playing that other, more technically proficient guitarists were into. But what he did was that he created a style of rhythm guitar that played, had enough going on to kind of fill in the high end. But meanwhile, Mike Mills, who was a much more trained bass player, is filling in a lot of space with his bass and creating counter melodies and doing things. So they're sort of building a sound that is distinctive based on, figuring out ways to turn those limitations into assets. At the same time, Michael Stipe, who's an incredibly gifted singer, and lyricist, is young and learning his craft and not, that confident about his voice. So when they're making this record, he's writing words that are very sort of, at times abstract, impressionistic, and kind of mystifying in a way that is both confusing and but also sort of cool,
Right.
because you have to do a lot of work to figure out what the hell he's talking about. And and they mix his voice down with the rest of the instruments, and so he's writing these weird sort of like almost kind of abstract phrases that combine sort of weird old colloquialisms with just things he's making up. And meanwhile, they're mixing it down, lower than you expect. So, and there's no lyric sheet. So you have literally, nearly no idea what he's talking about. But that's kind of cool because that's where your imagination can fit
Yeah.
in. And, so you're having this deep, if you're called to that type of music, and clearly, I mean, we're talking the early 80s, right? So we remember what was on MTV at the time, what was on the radio, all these sort of shiny, very sort of mainstreamy commercial type music that was filling our, the radio and MTV at the time. And on the other hand, you have this dark and mysterious and aggressively weird band out of Athens who still, though, while it's not unaccessible per se, because they just happen to be great, melodicists. And they write these songs and you listen to them and it's like you listen to them now and it's like, God, there's hooks all over these
I
songs.
know.
and they're just, they get in, they sweep you up and off you go with them. So it wasn't easy to find at the time, but if you knew where to look and you connected with it, it was like, in that same way that, like, the thing about you that made you unacceptable to the mainstream kids at school, and made them want to beat you up or call you a fag, or an art fag or whatever.
Totally.
Like, in this context, that's what made you cool. That's what made you a member of the club. And and then if you went to a show, suddenly there were your people, and they were around you in the crowd, and they were also up on stage because those guys were so young at the time. And especially during those 80s years, when they would do a show, especially the smaller early ones, at clubs, after it was over, they'd come out and grab a beer and talk to whoever was there, and befriend people. And so they were incredibly good. And I think, you could say, oh, this is really cynical, but I think it actually was. They'd go to shows and it was like, these are the people we'd be hanging out with if we lived here.
On page 263, you say, or someone said, the new music seemed to sparkle. And I agree. You can see with Green, like, that's the beauty of this book too. It shows that transformation all through, Reckoning and Fables of the Reconstruction, Life's Rich Pageant, Document.
No, I'm not done. It was
And
going to
then
cut it.
to all of a sudden you're starting to hear Peter Buck branching out to mandolin and different, exploring the sound, and you just feel it. It's like this, like, sparkle, I thought was a great word. But with that comes commercial, to be commercial or not, them selling out, and I remember that too. I remember being like, oh no, they're totally selling out. And if you could just speak to that, the commercial success, and they had all along said, we don't want to sell out, we don't want to sell out, but yet they were in a position now where they could make money, do whatever they wanted to do musically, and kind of what that represents.
Yeah, well, signing with Warner Brothers was, one of the reasons why they did it is because, and they wrote it into the deal, but it was also in the spirit of Lenny and Mo, which was, you guys will have complete creative freedom. Anything you want to do is exactly what you should do, and we'll support you as best we can. And obviously the guys at the record company are going to have some opinions about, well, we think this is the single,
right?
Or you might want to, Lenny would come into the studio and listen to stuff and say, well, why don't you punch up this part? And the thing is that they would be free to either follow his advice or not follow his advice. Sometimes he had good advice, and sometimes he had thoughts that he, even he subsequently would say, oh yeah, they saved me from myself that time.
Right.
Because they just said, no, we're not doing that. And he'd say, okay. And then release the song as was or whatever. And it would be a huge smash. And he'd be like, ooh, they saved me from myself.
What do you think led them to trust him? Or they did start bumping up his vocals a little, and that's one of the changes of his vocals. Yeah. And what do you think made them finally, like, what, and Michael Stipe at that time's just transformed. I mean, he's like coming out and starting to really step into his power in terms of a voice and speaking up for those who can, and AIDS and all of that stuff. So
right,
just briefly,
it took him a while. Well, I think for Michael and his, his orientation, his private life, for years and years, he through the 80s and into the early 90s, his attitude was like a normal attitude, mature person attitude, which is, this is kind of nobody's business. It's like who I'm dating or who I'm fooling around with. It's like, that's about me, and I don't make I don't want to talk about it. But then, especially as the AIDS crisis was ongoing, and there was a lot of discontent, people in the, there were people in the gay community who understood that Michael was, kind of a, queer in some way, shape, or form. Dated men as well as women. But I think that in some ways, his confidence growing to the point where he was going to come out of the closet and become a, sort of a spokesperson or a figurehead for that community, or a very public advocate for it, happened after, good 4 or 5 years after
Totally, you're right.
he had grown into artistically, I think, developing the confidence, not just to write lyrics that parsed, that you could actually understand, that had a narrative thrust to them, but also sing them in a voice that was, and he trusted his voice at this point enough to understand that, well, we can actually mix this in a way that people can hear what I'm saying. And because I think he also began to trust his ability as a lyricist and felt like he had something important he wanted to say, and he wanted people to hear what he had to say.
You have been around a lot of music, you've seen a lot, talked to a lot, and I'm interested in the vesselship of Michael Stipe, of course, and musicians like David Byrne and others who it's trance like where they go. And Michael seemed to do that really early on, like even on Letterman, where he was standing back and not wanting to talk to anybody and very but still he would get behind the mic and he would transform. So what do you think the vesselship involved in a musician's life has to do with a connection to something greater than themselves?
That's a complicated question. I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, that's kind of the point at which it all, really great art to some extent seems to come from,
100%.
which is this intangible thing of some connection to some bigger force, and, I mean, I wrote this book about Brian Wilson that came out about 20 years ago, and I was talking to Brian about, and Brian was notorious, notoriously kind of a weird guy, and and had a lot of psychiatric complexity, and to some extent that was a world of pain for him, but to another extent it seemed to open the door to a level of creativity that was astounding. And he talked about when he wrote God Only Knows, which all of which he wrote in 18 minutes. The fellow Tony Asher, who co-wrote it, who wrote the lyrics, was sitting in his living room and had handed him the lyric sheet. And Brian composed this incredible music, which Paul McCartney to this day says is the greatest rock,
that's right,
pop song ever written. It's incredibly complex, melodically, harmonically, and he wrote it all in less than, from zero to extant in 18 minutes. And Brian said, well, I could see angels fluttering above me in the air when I wrote this, which is like, any other artist, you'd think, well, that's probably bullshit, but it's Brian Wilson. And Brian was, I feel like he probably did see, I mean, and it's like, so he's having some engagement with some level of consciousness that the rest of us can't. And I feel like, in a performance with, somebody, an artist who is as inspired as Michael Stipe or Brian or, Bruce Springsteen, all these guys, it's like something magical is taking place, some X factor thing that the rest of us can't, like, you kind of know it when you hear it, but you'll never put your finger on where it came from. And a lot of what I'm trying to kind of figure out when I write about any artist is, well, what's the point at which a relatively normal person's experience of life ends up becoming grist for this astounding art?
Battery full. Connect. Connected to messages iPhone.
Okay. Welcome everybody. For people who have joined during the video, I'm Polly Simpkins, your host here tonight, and I just want to say thank you. And thanks so much to Peter Ames Carlin for, as you can see, an absolutely fascinating biographer. And I will post the full audio for that interview on the website at mbyradio.org/book club, because it's worth listening to. He's really, really interesting. And hopefully we'll get to talk with him again about his books about Bruce Springsteen in the fall.
So at this point, just if anybody has read the book or has anything they'd like to say about it, I know some people have seen REM here, who are on the call. Welcome, and just whatever comes forth is great.
Well, the only thing I remember about REM, because I'm an old fossil, Polly, was that that song was being played after 9/11, the end of the world as we know it.
Hmm. You're right. It's a great song. Yeah, I mean, as he said, and Peter talked about, Michael Stipe, he's so interesting because at the beginning, if you've read the book, at the beginning of the book, they talk about how Michael Stipe intentionally made his lyrics unrecognized,
Mm.
like you didn't know what he was talking about half the time. But as Peter said later on, he started to really want to be heard and wanted to define his messaging, and that song's a great example of that.
But it
I
was
saw
long
them on.
before 9/11, wasn't it?
Yes. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah, it was for a different reason, a different time. And to think that all of a sudden it might become relevant again for whoever was reminding us, that's all.
No, of course. And I love that. There's a Wilco song. What is it? And maybe somebody knows it, but that also is another one that ended up getting interpreted at 9/11. It wasn't meant to be. I think it was off A Ghost is Born. And Jeff Tweedy said it wasn't meant to be about 9/11, but then it became about 9/11. So
Right. Amen.
good point.
On the point of his lyrics, I was fortunate to see them on the 1995 tour. And two things I remember about it. One, I didn't really remember so much until I read the book, which is how the first thing he said, the name of this band is REM, and this is what we do, was exactly what he said when he came out. And after a couple of songs, he had an easel or like a stand in front of him with all papers and it, like music sheets, and someone made a comment in the audience, and he said, "Of course I have all the lyrics here. Do you understand my songs? I don't know. I don't remember all these lyrics. They don't make any sense. They don't mean anything."
No way. Oh, that's great. And that was 1995.
Yep.
Wow.
I think it was Grant Lee Buffalo that opened for them.
Hmm.
I saw him at
Where was it?
uh it was then called US Air Arena, I think. It was in Landover,
Oh.
Maryland, right outside of DC.
Hmm. Wow.
I really liked how he called it dream music in the
Yes.
book. It was such the perfect description.
So true. My gosh. How cool to see them. I think he's a genius. I mean, whatever you call a who knows what that means? I don't know, but Michael Stipe has something. And I loved Peter Ames Carlin talking about that vessel ship with him because he definitely is one of those musicians who kind of transports himself to another place. Thanks, Jen. And thanks for being here.
Can I jump in on that a little bit too? I think this is Rachel.
Oh,
I think that the way that he creates lyrics, it reminds me about the transactional theory of literature. There's what the artist thinks they wrote, there's what the reader interprets, and then there's the actual words on the page. And I think that the words that he leaves on the page leave so much richness for us to dig into and make connection with our own lives, especially at that point in history. So when I think about the lyrics that he writes, every time I want to think about a situation I'm in that's difficult or unusual, there's always an REM song that seems to be able to give me a direction to move in. And I don't know if that was intentional or not.
I
But
love that.
his lyrics allow for that. Another thing I want to talk about just from a writing perspective is I was so grateful that this was written by Peter Carlin. His ability to craft a sentence that just grabs you and gets to the point of it. On page 40, he said something about the B-52s that I laughed out loud because I was like, finally somebody's identified it. He wrote about Planet Claire. This was the first of 6 songs they'd written, all featuring lean guitar riffs, cheesy two-finger organ, Schneider's unhinged auctioneer vocals, and otherworldly peals from the women who harmonized, chanted, and made unsettling ululations that landed somewhere between Yoko Ono and Angry Cats.
Oh, that's so great. I know that's so Peter. You're so right about that. He has that ability to, and not only that, but along with that, as I told him when I talked to him, he also can like weave in what was happening in the world, what was happening with each of them, and then like you just talked about, then the B-52s, and I mean the vast range of his knowledge is so great. And then to be able to put it into words like you read is just, it's a gift and super, super talented. But thank you also for the literary. And I think I remember when Chris Thiele came to MVY Radio and PJ was interviewing him and he talked about, and I think this might be kind of what you're referencing, and he talked about the importance of when you're writing lyrics to just leave room in them so there can be interpretation and not be too specific because then the person listening doesn't get a chance to really like make it their own. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about with Michael Stipe. Like they can become your own. And even like we were saying with 9/11, like there's room in them for sure. Thank you.
Holly, can I?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think one of the threads that was interesting in the book is, kind of a common one that they were kind of rebelling against mainstream culture when they're in Athens and the world they came out with, the B-52s as well. But then they get huge.
I
And
know.
there's always that question about, selling out, and suddenly they're being liked by some of the very people that they were rebelling against. But I feel like Neil Young, they did a nice job. Now they're doing it to a fault by totally packing it in. But they did a nice job of not selling out even when they wanted to be heard. And he does in the book on page 348, there's a bunch of this like that they refused to tour with U2 and Squeeze because they thought that was going too mainstream. And U2 at their outset was coming from a rebellious world as well. And I just want to get a sense of the group as to what do you do, because I know the Talking Heads when they became frat party anthems, they hated it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would love to hear what other people think about that too. And that's why I asked Peter about it, because I remember U2 is another, you're so right about U2 too. I remember everyone was like, oh no, they're selling out. But yet they're in a position, as I said to Peter, where now they have money, they can play wherever and however they want. And, I think with that comes a lot of decisions to be made. So yeah, I'd love to hear also if anybody else has thoughts about that. Such a good point. The whole selling out thing is such a
Yeah, this is Tony. I thought that they managed to walk the line between uh, their popularity and getting their message across. And um, I think they always stood for something, but when they became more popular, they realized it. And I don't think they sold out. They used their platform to get across what they intended all along.
Hmm. I know the whole term sellout is kind of lame in itself. I just remember that being a big thing, like because as he talked about, and maybe I'm wondering if other people feel this way with REM and bands that you love, that they're yours and they're your people, and then I think selling out represents just that audience broadening, and it's hard because you think they're yours and then all of a sudden they become millions of other people's.
Yeah, to me, selling out means if they'd have become the Monkees or something, that'd have been selling out.
That's true, yeah.
Uh, and they didn't, you know. Uh, so I don't I think they walked the line between their success and wanting to get their message across.
Yeah. Well put.
Yes. On my feet.
Hey, hey, Polly, it's Deb.
Hey.
I just thanks for doing this. I loved the book. I loved
Oh,
REM.
good.
Um, and I say loved. I mean, I'm one of those people that in a lot of the bands that I came up with in the 80s, like after 87, 88, I kind of dropped off on them because a lot of them kind of changed their sound. And I wouldn't call it selling out. I just call it, when their sound kind of matured or
Mm,
whatever, I wasn't interested.
right.
That happened with so many bands of that
So
time.
many.
So
Totally.
many. U2, B-52s even. Like if I have to
Mm.
hear Love Shack, I'm gonna, I just and so like and so, Life's Rich Pageant was my last favorite
Mm. Oh,
REM
interesting.
record. I know, I'm pretty harsh. Um,
No, I relate. I totally understand. That's
yeah, and I
interesting
did
that
get to see them in 87, so that was nice I think it was the document tour, I believe. Can't
wow.
remember. Um, and yeah, so anyway, and I just really enjoyed the book and
I'm so glad.
I didn't know much about them of all this time, having them be like one of my favorite bands. So it was really
Oh,
nice.
that's awesome.
And I
Oh,
did
that's
an
great.
audiobook. So
Oh, cool. Did Peter read it? I didn't.
no.
Okay.
No. And so I actually always wonder what most of the audiobooks I read, especially bios or especially autobiographies, I try to read it, but the person who it's about.
Yeah.
Like Pete Townsend read his and Barbara Streisand read hers, etc. But I don't it was hard for me to tell if it was like a well-written book because somebody else was reading it.
Yeah, I know that's hard sometimes.
So yeah, but it did the job and I really
Oh, I'm
enjoyed it.
glad. And where did
Yeah.
you see REM? Because I know there's some people here who's a bunch of people who've seen them. Where did you see them?
I was
Oh,
in
hi.
college. I was oops. I was in college and I saw them in Charleston, West Virginia at
Wow.
an auditorium that actually my friend had his high school graduation. He
Oh,
was with us. Yeah, yeah. Oh,
what's
come
his
on.
name? What's your puppy's name?
Oh, that's Bernadette.
Oh, my God, she's so cute.
Oh, stop. And so yeah, so that's where I saw them. I think that is the only time I've seen them,
Mm, so
oddly.
good. How
But I saw
fun.
like Peter Buck play with, Robin Hitchcock and all that. But no,
Right.
but as a band, I
We have
didn't.
some great.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
what Peter was saying, that the reason he wrote the book is because he's in Seattle and Peter lives in Seattle and or Portland or something, and he's playing a lot up there. So, of course.
Yep.
Who
Anyway,
else has seen REM? I think somebody at the beginning at the call had said that actually, I think there's two people here who have seen REM together, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah, we saw him at Duke at
Oh, right.
Cameron Indoor. What tour was that, Mike? Mike's muted. You're muted, Mike. But yeah, it was Cameron Indoor. I think it was Document, and it was great.
So around that same time that Deb was just talking about.
Hmm.
Mm. Oh, hi guys.
Right. Well, I had the pleasure to see him twice with a lot of years in between. The first was that show with the Police at Shea Stadium in 1983, where most of the audience had no idea who they were because you
Right.
couldn't get them on New York radio unless you listened to WLIR or had some friends who were really into that scene. The next was 20 years later at Vote for Change, where they're sharing
Right.
the stage with Springsteen and John Fogerty and etc. And the message rang pretty clear at that point. And something struck me from the book was Michael Stipe talking about how like nervous he was about meeting Bruce. I mean, at that point, he was just as big a star.
Right,
You know,
right.
but yeah, thought it was an interesting
That is so cool.
revelation. You know,
Yeah, and it speaks to him because he's so humble, and I could imagine him being like that. But what did you notice were differences between, I mean, obviously completely different shows, but
well, just that the vote for change, Bill Barr wasn't with him anymore,
oh,
so
that's right.
uh, yeah, they had the sort of the other guys, and they're using some of the other musicians, and they come out and they were part of the E Street section of the show, but the lyrics are just so understandable, and thank God that they were, because that was the whole point of that tour in 2004.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's the end of the world as we know it had taken on a different sort of meaning. Also helped that Stipe did "Because the Night" with Bruce, since Patti Smith had um, basically co-written it with him. So
Right, that's right. Very good point. I bet that was amazing. I saw Michael Stipe last year at the Tibet House concert in New York with Patti Smith. He was reciting, I think, Allen Ginsberg poetry, and they did for the People um, together. It was amazing. And I know that they're really good friends too. So is it Power to the People or Power for the People? No, I don't know. But anyway, you know what I mean.
Two.
Two,
Yeah.
thank you. Oh, right, Power to the
The
People.
people have the power.
Yes, exactly. So good. But he was so humble and so such a poet, you know. I think he's just continues to be a very important voice. I wanted to ask if by chance Ian's here yet. I can't see the whole group, which I need to change my settings, but is Ian here yet? Are you here, Ian? Strange. He said he was going to come out on and at 7:30, but I don't see him yet.
I don't see him. I've been checking the participants, but I haven't seen him come in yet.
Okay, no worries. But yeah, it's fun to talk about those old shows and the days of Duke, and you hear about all the shows and the college campuses that were having all those amazing bands, um and yeah, he talks about the police, them backing up the police in the book too, which is crazy. um and the police were getting ready to break up a little bit right around that same time too, so but
can
yeah.
can I just ask a book club question? Uh,
Sure.
is he too uh, complimentary? Is he ever really critical of the band or the people or anything that's
Peter
going
in
on?
general.
Yeah, but yeah, the book, is this a hagiography or is this a
Yeah,
balanced biography?
it's a good question. I do feel it's balanced. I think he definitely chooses people. Like, even you heard him talking about Brian Wilson when we were talking about him, and he was like, he's a weird guy and complicated, and I think he's very honest. But as I said, I think he chooses subjects that he's interested in. So I guess that's an answer in itself. If you're choosing people that you like and you like their music, then it makes sense that you would probably be a little bit biased. But I think he's a great enough journalist and super deep. Did you read the book? Yeah, you just talked about that. Um, but yes, he does certainly seem to, in this book in particular, just love them and appreciate them for sure. It's a great
I,
question in terms of journalism, like rock journalism in general.
I thought he exposed some warts that he saw along the way, and that speaks to balance. Um, I thought it was a really fair uh, uh, portrayal.
Mm.
Yeah. And as you hear when he talks, he reminds me of a little kid who's just really excited about Christmas or something. He's just like so into it, and he's just so into really telling it like it is, I think. So I do feel like he is pretty balanced, but also at the same time really excited about his subject. So it makes it nice too. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to reading. I haven't read his Bruce Springsteen stuff yet, but clearly he's definitely a huge fan for sure.
He does a really nice job of pointing out some of the warts on page 24 about the story that Michael Stipe had provided about hearing the album Horses for the first time. And he says the chronology of the story doesn't quite add up. And calls out specifically that it was released on November and that he recalled eating cherries, which wouldn't have been in season. And I'm like,
oh my gosh, you're right.
He goes into some detail on that, which I think is funny. But back to the point of, is this fair? It says, but the literal truth counts less than the emotional truth of the experience. So I think he might be leaning in a little bit on that one.
A little bit, but thank you for catching that and knowing exactly where that was, because that's good for Michael, in response to Michael's kind of comment. Um, and you very deeply read the book, obviously.
I have all my pages marked.
You're like me, I do the same. I
I'm
love it.
sorry, I couldn't help myself. I love this group and I enjoyed the writing so much.
Oh, I'm so glad. That's so nice to hear. But thank you for pointing out he did expose um yeah. He also does such great deep research. I loved when he was talking about like just the transition, and it's so messy that it's hard. He does a good job of the transition from IRS and just all of that stuff, and Jay Boberg, and then moving to Warner Brothers, and how that all just came together, and the ability for him to hold space for all of that and what they were all going through. And I loved how he talked about everyone who worked with REM from the beginning uh, loved working with them because they were polite, they were into the music, they worked really hard, and they were really, really focused. And I love that it goes that far back, like they were good kids and they were really into it, and it paid off for them totally. It's really fun to be here with all of you. I so appreciate it. I think there's comments here too, but of course I can't read them. Um,
Hey, I have a question. It's Rich. I have a comment about this idea of selling out because
yes.
I was in art school at the time that they came around, and I never made it as an artist because I couldn't imagine selling anything. Even
True.
now, now that I mean I had a job in between and everything, but that was part of the thing there as well, not just
Mm.
music.
Yeah,
So
no, that's a good point. And I don't even know really what selling out means. And I think somebody else mentioned, maybe it was Tony or whoever said maybe selling out represents like just becoming the monkeys, I think he said, or something that's
yeah.
completely. And what do you think, Richard? Like even
Uh,
as an artist.
yeah, well, which I was then, but now I'm not. It was just the idea of doing something for the well, as he said in the book, as Peter says in the book, he's talking about, becoming an individual and not doing something for some company.
Right.
Um, so that's part of it. But then as I mean, in art school at the time, that was definitely it, is going out and doing something which is different, particularly if you're like doing performance art. I mean, did you have any idea that people were going to understand what you were doing? You know,
Right.
being
Right.
being wrapped up in tape in a bus station in Syracuse, New York.
Is that seriously? Oh, that's so funny. Is
Yeah,
that where you went to school?
yeah, yeah,
Syracuse?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
no,
And there
that's a
were a
really,
lot of art. There were a lot of art students and stuff that were doing music up there, of course. So
oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
a
for
lot of
sure.
these college campuses. And,
Every campus. Yeah.
It was amazing.
Richard, who is that shot behind you? Who's the band?
I know, it's awesome.
I know it's at the Rat.
it just says Boston Rocks, I think. Boston Rock and Roll. I don't know who the
Oh,
band
you
is
don't know who the
actually.
band is. Okay.
No, I just grabbed it off of Google.
Okay. Got
Very
it.
cool. It
Sorry
looks,
to out you.
Isn't that the Talking Heads?
Oh
yeah,
my
I think it's
God. You know
Tina,
what?
Yeah, I
Tina
think
You're
and
you're right.
David.
right.
Over there and David and yeah.
I
Oh
think
my
you're right.
gosh. Good call.
Very good
Who,
call.
so
Nice.
who's
Hmm.
we can't see
I
the
Oh, and Chris
drummer.
yeah.
France. Chris France is on
Oh, good
drums.
one. Good call.
That was great.
Very
I was
good.
looking for the Ramones because I know they played there, but
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great. I love it. I love our MBY Radio Book Club listeners are able to just call that right out. It's awesome.
I have a fun little just quick story. In the 90s, I was living in Boston and we were big music fans and my friend Jeff called me one day. He's like, let's perform Life's Rich Pageant at I forget what bar. And I was like, okay. And we
Oh
just
my
like
gosh.
grabbed he grabbed a bunch of like weird instruments he had and I grabbed a bunch of mine and we practiced and we performed
No
Life's Rich
way.
Pageant in
That's
its
crazy.
entirety in order at some bar in Cambridge.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
actually, Polly, I'll send it to you. I actually have a recording of it.
No way. Please send that to me. I would love to see that.
I will.
Which is so interesting because I don't know if Ian's here. I don't think he is, unfortunately, because he's, as I've said, Michael Shannon and Jason Narducci just performed Life's Rich Pageant in its entirety on their tour that just ended this week. And that's what they did for the last, they were in Boston. There were a bunch of dates. And so you had a good idea way before. And so Ian Wheeler, who was supposed to come on, he was telling me that this is right around when his kids go to bed, but he has a documentary that's coming out, as I mentioned, about Michael Shannon and Jason and the journey that they've been on covering REM. And Michael Stipe, I think just last week, joined them on stage. I'm not sure it was in Boston, but it's the 40th anniversary of Life Search Pageant. So that's why they're doing it. Is that funny?
Oh my
So
gosh. Wow.
I know. So you were
It's
ahead of
so
your time.
amazing.
Not surprising.
I don't know if
Oh,
anybody else does this. I'm sure you all do, but whenever I listen or read a autobiography, again, mainly, this is like the first biography I've read in a while. I
wow.
always like stop and like listen to the album that they're on and then
Right.
go
I
back to the
know.
book.
Me
Always, like
too.
just for context and
Yeah, 100%. That's one of the reasons it's nice to have the playlists that I post on the
yes.
website, because so you
Hmm.
can listen along, which is so fun. But I didn't expect so many REM fans because you never know. It's been a while, and last time people were wanting to hear more about Bruce, so it makes me happy that you're all here and caring about REM.
Does
Um,
does reading the book change anyone's sense of what's the greatest REM album? Seems like Murmur's held in pretty high esteem even when you're done. But like
It
Mike
is.
Mills said, his favorite REM song was Night Swimming on Automatic for the People. And I don't know where yeah, say that. But what does it change anyone's view of the greatest REM album?
Well, I want to expand on that Mike Mills thing. Oddly enough, I saw an interview with him and Michael Stipe being conducted by Dan Rather, and they avoided a lot of "What's the frequency, Kenneth," but rather asked them, "What's your favorite stuff?" And neither one of them could, Stipe kind of demurred, and Mike Mills said the final three songs on automatic for the people. So that's what Man on the Moon, Night Swimming, where he played the piano, we found out from the book, and Find the River. It's a pretty interesting, very emotional
Yeah.
set of three songs.
Absolutely. Wow. What a great. And that's Mike Mills saying that, or Michael?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Stipe didn't want to touch it.
Yes, seriously, that's a lot. It's such a good question. I love Murmur, but I did love the Warner Brother years when he talks about them transitioning. And Green, I remember really loving. I think Murmur will always be my favorite, but um, when he talks about their sound changing and them able to just expand the way that they did with Warner Brothers and given all that freedom, I thought that was like a second chapter kind of. What about anybody else? Favorite REM album? Such a good question.
Whatever I'm listening to right now.
Ah, that's a good answer.
I know I have my moods for certain albums. You go to certain moods, you go to certain albums.
Yeah, good
Like the
point.
Beatles. Yeah.
Isn't it funny how that happens? Like I've been noticing that about myself lately too, or driving in the car and you just feel like you need a certain sound, you need just a certain feelings evoking a certain sound. So yeah, amazing.
I had it today with when PJ was playing Richie Havens, uh, then Circle Game and Tom Rush and Leonard
Oh,
Cohen back to
right.
back to back to back. I had to go to a store, but I sat in front of the store. I couldn't get out of the car.
I love it. I
Yeah,
love those moments. That's
yeah.
awesome. I didn't hear that. Was he playing it during the lunch hour or?
It was recognizing the people who were going to be inducted into
Oh, that's right.
the Folk Hall of Fame. Yeah,
I know that's so exciting. I love that they're doing that. Richie
yeah,
Havens, wow.
yeah.
So
Then
cool.
he played Joni Mitchell's Circle Game. Then he said, "Well, Tom Rush covered it," and then he played Tom Rush Urge for Going, and he played Leonard Cohen. So it was great.
Wow. That is great.
Yeah.
Good old MBY radio.
Yep. Oh, one of the things that I was interested, I guess I didn't really know that, but that the relationship between 10,000 Maniacs and
Oh.
Natalie Merchant, I didn't realize that until I read the book.
Ah, that's
That was
great that you
interesting.
learned
Yeah.
that. Yes, totally. And you can see it, right? I mean, it makes
Yeah.
sense for sure. No,
Yep.
Michael Stipe's a great collaborator.
Yep.
Incredible. Well, I'm so glad so many of you read the book. Thank you so much and I'm so sorry Ian's not here. Ian, you're not here, are you? I'm so surprised because he was so looking forward to it. Um, yeah, it's too bad. And I checked, he hasn't emailed me or anything, so not sure what the deal is. But it
Rachel's
happened.
killing me with that dog.
I know the dog is
Uh,
amazing. Bernadette.
Look at those. No, I don't. Rachel, what's your dog's name?
Oh, it's not Bernadette. I met
Oh,
a
that's
Bernadette
Rachel.
recently.
Her name
Bernadette's
is
sleeping.
Cinnamon, and she thinks she's the star of the show. Do not give her any credit. She is
She
Ari's
is.
She
mom.
is.
Look at those little Dorito chip ears. Oh,
What's her name? One more time.
Cinnamon.
Oh, Cinnamon. Oh my gosh, she's so
cinnamon
cute. Oh,
girl.
look, there's another. Richard has a cat. Is it a cat? I always like to remember all the MVY radio animals too. Our cats and dogs are a huge part of the station.
This is
Cinnamon.
Cinnamon is
Frank.
a
This is
sustaining
Franklin.
donor.
Oh, Franklin. Oh my God.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt the cat.
I love it. And then Deb, what is your dog's name?
Bernadette.
Oh, right. That's what I thought. Bernadette.
Bernadette.
Oh my gosh, she's
Oh, wait,
pretty.
you met her. That's right.
I
You
met
met
her.
her at the space.
Yes,
That's
exactly. I
right.
knew I knew I had met her.
Yeah, I just remembered.
Oh, and there's our dog, Namaste. my husband's putting him, he's asleep on the floor. But anyway, thank you all so much. I'm so grateful for this discussion and for showing up and just caring about the music. And on behalf of everyone here, thank you for loving MVY and being part of the station.
Thank you
And
for doing this.
yeah, of course. And again, thanks to Tony, Living in the Present with John Prine by Tom Piazza. It's a very short read. It's not long at all, and it's really good. So I look forward to that on May 20th. Thanks again to Joe Stickles. Thanks again to Brewster Bookstore. And to you, if you're not here live right now and you're watching at a later date, thanks for clicking on this recording and listening and caring about the music as well. Thanks for all the hearts, everybody. Those are so sweet. But hopefully we'll see you next time. And again, I'll be posting that audio from that interview, which is really interesting with Peter Ames Carlin on the website if you want to check it out. It's always available for you. But thanks. And thanks, Joe. We couldn't do it without you. And thanks for your newscasts. And you're amazing, all the things that you do at MVY. Many hats. So
Thank you.
of course.
It's good to see everyone tonight.
It sure is. Yeah, you guys are the best. And maybe we'll have Ian come on next time and join us. Too bad he didn't make it. But thanks to everybody. Have a great rest of the month. And
good night.
Yes, good night.
Thanks, Joe and Polly.
Great job.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much.
Bye, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.